boy. You guys know what that is. Time to get dirty. Alright, well, I guess we gotta fix it. We might as well throw a cam in it too. So, Texas Speed Cam, incoming. What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Slow Restoration, and the question you guys all want answered is, can you do a cam swap without A, dropping the oil pan, and B, pulling the oil pump? And the answer is yes, you can. With that being said, it's actually pretty easy to do. I did this job before without doing it on an LT1 Camaro, or with pulling all of it. So pulled the pan, pulled the pump. So on the LT1, I did drop the pan. I pulled the oil pump and went about it the normal way. And yes, that does work. Yes, that's a lot more work because the pan is a lot of work to get off. And on this 2016 Silverado that we're working on right now, it is actually four-wheel drive and it has a power rack and pinion. So all that would have to be moved to get the pan off. So it would be substantially more work. If you take your time, when I did the Camaro, I didn't, like I said, I took it apart, taking everything apart, because I was afraid to put too much pressure on that chain. But if you follow a couple steps I'm getting ready to go over right now, it's very doable. Again, on the front cover, there's a wiring harness that comes through. It plugs into the bottom of the oil pump. You can unplug it from up top here, but you don't have to. Just kind of be gentle. Don't yank and tug on that a whole lot. So we're getting ready to slide the cam out, but just some quick references here. Like I said, you don't have to undo your oil pump and you don't have to take the pan off. It is doable. It's a little tricky. And when you're pulling the chain off, it's not so much a prying motion as it is a gentle persuading of that chain to go behind these cam teeth. So that chain obviously rides on here. With the slack, you can start it, and then you just kind of persuade that chain to go behind these teeth. Like I said, once you get 2 to 3 teeth in, it comes off really, really easy. While this is apart, obviously we're going to pull the cam out, so that'll be spun, but we're not going to spin the crank. We want to make sure no one messes with that. Take note also where the dowel pin is in the cam. It's kind of straight horizontal to the right, which would be the left of the vehicle. But us looking at it here, this is my right hand, it's sticking out right here to the right, and it's pretty much horizontal. That's the tricky part with putting this back together, is getting that dowel pin hole right there in the cam phaser line back up with the cam once you get the chain on and all of your marks lined up. It's a little tricky, a little bit of patience, you can definitely get it done. And line your marks up. So we did do some marks. You can't see the mark on the crank gear, but we do know when that cam gear, which is actually right here, and there's the mark on it, and then we have these two indexing marks that correspond. You can see my black Sharpie lines right up with that mark on that tooth. We set that back over here because we do have to do something with that also. But we put a Sharpie mark on the oil pump where the cam gear lines up. There's a keyway in the crank gear. We put a Sharpie mark also on the oil pump where that lines up. Not that you have to 100% do that, but if anything were to happen when you were doing this and the crank got rotated or anything twisted, you want to know where your marks are, because we can't see the factory timing marks except for that cam mark. So this is kind of a fail-safe maybe, or a backup plan. There's a tensioner. You can pry that back, put a small pin in there to take the pressure off. That puts some slack in your chain. So once we get the tension off, we back this bolt out after we have it in time. We back this bolt out, get that out of our way, allow that cam sprocket, the cam phaser to kind of come off the end of the cam and fall down towards, you get a lot more slack in the chain. You still can't just pull it off, but you can take some small screwdrivers, and you're not going to really pry it off so much. It's more persuading it. There is enough room. You just need to it's kind of a gentle motion. You're not really prying on that chain or the gear hardly at all to get this done. It's, like I said, kind of persuading that chain, the slack part, to go behind the gear on the teeth. And as you're working your way around, you're just persuading that chain to continue on its way. Once you get a couple teeth in, it gets a lot looser and you can almost just plop it off. Shot from this angle kind of shows you what you have to do. Just kind of prop up the AC condenser here. Get up out of the way, just enough room for that cam to slip through. The last couple lobes is what needs to slip through. We have it put in there. There are 2 journals inside the cam already. Don't ever just let the cam hang there off one bearing. 2 bearings is fine to support it. And we are going to use some assembly lube as we're going back together. We're going to dive right into this. Since we do have to pull the radiator to do the cam swap, I'm going to go ahead and pull this cover off. It's a bunch of those push clips. Once you get the push clips out, this just lifts off and out of the way, and that just makes more visibility so you can see what you're actually doing back there. Taking stuff apart, we're going to unplug our sensor here, mass airflow sensor, so it's got a safety. Pull it off, we'll unplug it. We're going to go ahead and get this air duct off, get the heater or the air filter box out, and just start getting down to where we can actually see the engine. Alrighty, with just those couple things out, we can actually see the front of the engine and get down in there and start removing a lot more stuff, a lot more easy, because we can actually see what we're doing. All right, we got carried away with removing stuff. We have the coolant bottle out, a lot of the hoses unhooked, a lot of the wiring unhooked, obviously the intake manifold off. The worst part about taking that intake off by far is there's 4 clips in the back of it that hold that wiring harness right there, and they're a real pain to get to. But once you get them popped off, it kind of lifts up and slides right out. There's a couple vacuum lines. Your PCV system hooks up here. Just a few things in the way, like I said, the wiring harness and stuff like that. But we have that off. I'm gonna keep ripping down here. We did get the coil covers off too. I got most of this valve cover unbolted. We'll start unbolting that valve cover, and then once we get inside, we can actually see. I know it's a suck lifter, you can tell by the sound, but I think it's number 7 cylinder, which is all the way in the back on that side, driver's side. I just like to confirm that stuff. Got the valve cover off here. I'm trying to balance here and show you this, but all these are tight, and then we get to the very back one, and there's our issue. Collapse lifter. There is a way you can go in and try to unstick them and then lock them out with a tune, or modify the VLOM so it doesn't happen again. But this particular customer was thinking about cam anyway, so we're gonna do a full DOD delete. We're gonna carry on here, but there's all the racket noise and all the trouble we're going through is because of that. Obviously we got pretty far now. Went ahead and got both the exhaust manifolds off. I forget where I stopped before, but obviously the driver's side head is now off too. Don't forget the head bolts. The front corner of the driver's side has this Allen bolt, so it's different than all the rest. Not real sure, I guess fitment issues. Well, we lost battery and we kept right on working, so now we have the other head off. As I was saying, we have both cylinder heads off. On that front driver's side, there is that different head bolt, so be aware of that. And now we can obviously get right in, pull those DOD lifters out, and I can see that very back one. I'll show you when I pull it. It is 100% collapsed. You can see it's actually not as tall as the other one. So we're going to keep going here. Again, this is not a step-by-step, but it's just kind of an overview of how to do this job. Obviously, you got to take the heads off to get the lifters out. Next step, we're going to go ahead and pull this front cover and the balancer off. Not in that order, balancer off, then the front cover, and see if we can't get that old cam out. We also have a DOD block off valley cover from Texas Speed. So this valley cover also has to come off. It has to come off regardless if you're doing a DOD delete, but there's a couple different ways of doing it. We went ahead and got the valley cover off. As you can see, the tower's right there. That's what needs to be blocked off, and that new cover will do that. All the way in the very back is a lifter for the high pressure fuel pump. So we also need to remove that, and the lifter trays, obviously. We have these two out on this side, and let's run over and check out that valley cover. So the bottom side of the valley cover looks like that. This is called the VLOM. It's very complicated. This is what actually controls the DOD and the cylinder deactivation, but this is what we're deleting. We're going to get rid of all this. It's no good. It always has problems. So we could throw new DOD lifters in and get some life out of this, but customer wants to do away with it and put a small cam in at the same time, which is a very good idea. We're moving on to this PCV system, actually the valley cover from Texas Speed. Get the bolts off here and I'll flip it up so you can see it. Here it is, the Texas Speed DOD delete valley cover. Makes it nice, you don't have to use the plugs, but you do have to transfer over quite a bit actually. So the PCV system is actually right here. It's going to go right in that hole there. There's an O-ring on there. It's going to drop right down in, and all the bolt holes are already there. We're going to use these bolts. We're going to go ahead and clean them up, Loctite them, screw them down, and that'll be ready to install. We already changed our PCV valve here. There is a plug in the front where they machined it, and your oil pressure sensor here, and another plug on top. But real quick, I just wanted to show, drop them down here. So here's the VLOM, the factory valley cover, whatever you want to call it. We're going to set it down here. So that PCV trough vent system is actually under this. There's no way of getting it out except for removing this electrical part. So there is a plug here, as you can see. All the solenoids are there, and these are all riveted in from the factory. So pretty much you have to drill each rivet, maybe grind a little bit on the outer edge. This whole thing will pick up off. Like I said, there's a plug here, normal connector comes off. Once you have this part off, then you can just simply unbolt and remove this whole PCV system. Obviously we got it all cleaned up here and getting ready to go back on, and then we can drop this valley cover on. I just want to mention that because there's no need to completely destroy this. You do make a mess. There's shavings kind of all over from drilling, but that's easily clean. You can clean that up, and if you resoldered and or riveted that back together, that would be a usable piece again. So I'm not going to use it. I have no desire to put it back to DOD, but someone might need that, and it's still a functioning good piece, so you don't have to destroy it. I've seen people actually cut these and just rip this thing apart, which essentially destroys that. Your call, but it's actually very quick and easy to do it this way. Going back together in reverse order here, so heads are on, torque down, push rods are in. We're getting ready to put all of our rocker arms back on, torque them down. The fuel rails are in, the high pressure oil pump is in. Moving right along, so I'm going to try and get this thing knocked out, back together and running. Alright guys, we got this all back together. We're going to go ahead and fire it up. It has actually been a little bit, again, I'm not trying to show every step of the way, just kind of showing the process of taking that cam gear off, and it can be done without 1, removing the engine, and 2, removing the oil pan. So obviously we have a check engine light on because the it needs tuned. All the codes are there. I checked it, there was like 12 or 13 codes for the DOD. It sounds good, runs good, it's nice and quiet. We'll peek under the hood here. So as you can see, you can't even really tell I've been in there. Everything went back together stock. You hear idling down now. It does have a slight lope to it. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.